Hi, I'm Corey Hicks, professor of modern music at Visible Music College, where I am also the head of the guitar division and head of the music theory division. And today I wanted to talk about becoming a professional musician, and specifically a professional guitar player. It's one of the questions that I get most often, and I think you would be surprised to know what goes into it. So let's get started. So I attended Berklee College of Music and McNally Smith College of Music, where I graduated magna cum laude with a guitar performance degree. That's a Bachelor of Music in Guitar Performance. I also attended McNally Smith's master's program for performance. And I have been playing music since the mid 1990s, so probably close to 30 years. And I've been playing guitar professionally since 2004. So, in that time, I have had a lot of different experiences. What I've basically tried to do is create a sustainable career in music. And you'll hear me use this term quite frequently. So, sustainable career in music. And what that means is with just your instrument or your musical skills, you're able to have a career. You're able to have income. You're able to support yourself. So I do have a wife and 7 beautiful children. So I am very blessed to be able to play music for a living, and that includes teaching and other things as well. So how do you get there? Well, I believe that versatility is probably the most important thing. So if you want to play music for a living, what you're going to need to do is be versatile. There's a lot of stuff that maybe you don't necessarily want to do in the beginning that you're going to have to do. So early on, I learned that if I had my guitar in my hands, playing in a wedding band or playing dance music or playing country music, it didn't matter what it was because I had my guitar in my hand. So if you're the type of player who is very particular about the type of music that you play, then it's going to be more difficult because then you have to be super specialized, and then your ability to make a living is going to be a lot less, especially if you're into rock music. So I find that people who specialize, especially in heavy styles of music, tend to have a harder time making a living with it. So when you go to school for music, one of the things that they teach you is kind of basic musician business practices. So how to get gigs, how to get a teaching studio started, how to make yourself available for all those different types of things. So I started doing that. Of course, teaching is a big part of all this. But let me take you back to when I first got back from Berklee College of Music. So this would have been 2004. I started off, working at Guitar Center of all places. And my time there was basically to network and, get discount on strings and stuff like that. But I did get a teaching studio job from working there. And I was grandfathered into about 40 students a week. Now, I know that doesn't happen for everyone, but it was a good thing for me, and that meant that I was teaching Monday through Saturday every single week, and I was teaching generally from 1 in the afternoon till about 9 at night. So teaching allowed me to have an income while I was trying to get gigs and while I was trying to figure out what my next steps were. So let's talk a little bit about teaching. So teaching in the beginning is not going to be as glamorous as you would think. So you might have a beginning piano student, right? You might have acoustic guitar students who just want to learn chords. You might have people who want to play in bands. You might have people that want to learn music theory. So you have to be versatile, be able to teach a lot of different types of students. So the more topics that you are fluent in, the more types of students you can have. When you're at music school, you learn how to play piano, you learn ear training and music theory, you learn how to play jazz, you learn how to play classical, you learn how to play rock, you learn how to play country and funk and gospel and all these different styles of music. And anytime someone wants to learn one of those styles of music, you at least have the basics covered. So your first groups of students, you might have some beginning guitar students, some beginning bass students, some beginning piano students. There might be some students that will come to your studio based on your own, let's say, specialization. So, for example, starting off early on, I was very much into blues guitar, so I would get more advanced students from that. So these 40 students were just a menagerie of all these different types. And you have to start, planning lesson plans, you have to start working on schedules, and, that's in my opinion, a very good way to start off is just by teaching. So if you are trying to be a professional musician and you don't like teaching, I would highly recommend learning how to like it really quickly. Because what's the alternative to that? I'll tell you a little bit about the alternative to that, a day job. So I worked a day job for about 6 months when I first started, and it wasn't right away, actually. I had already been, in and through my Guitar Center job. I had already started teaching. It may have been a summer where some students started, going on vacation and stuff like that. I remember one beginning of a month, very specifically. Me and my roommate, we had just finished paying rent. And I had like $40 left in my account, and he had like $20 left in his account. And we were sitting in the pool, and we were like, what are we going to do? Like, yeah, we just paid rent, but, we have to go get groceries. We have to do all this other stuff. So we basically decided to both apply for some jobs. And another instructor at the teaching studio that I worked through, his wife worked at a place called Deluxe Corporation, which they invented the check, if you remember checks. And so I ended up getting a job there being a phone salesman for business products and checks and stuff like that. Now, this was actually a great blessing for me because I met my wife. She worked there as well. And my 6 months there, though, were actually very important, I would say, for my development as a musician, because not only did I had to, for the very first time since I became a proficient musician, I had to actually budget my practice time. I would wake up at 5 a.m., get a couple hours of practice in before I went to work, and then I'd get off of work at 5:30. My first student was at 6. I would teach till 9 or 10 at night, sleep, rinse, and repeat. And so I had to learn how to budget my time. I had to learn how to improve as a musician with only an hour or two of practice a day. When I was used to 6, 8, 10 hours a day, that was a huge adjustment for me. And I think that, it was a good thing. So, but one of the other things that you learn from working at a day job is just how much you don't ever want to do it again. And I will say, if you have to work a day job, then you are not going to have the energy for your creative tasks. You just aren't. You're not going to want to come home after working 8, 10, 12 hours at a job and practice for 6 hours. I mean, maybe in your early 20s, but is that sustainable for the rest of your life? I don't think so. So, my 6 months there were very instructive. I basically made a plan to get out as quickly as I could. And once I did that, I started having opportunities doing things that would make money in music. So, namely, consulting. So consulting means somebody has a recording studio, or maybe they just bought a brand new guitar amplifier, or they want to learn how to do things outside of the general music lesson stuff. So maybe you have a very affluent man who bought a brand new Mesa Boogie amplifier. He needs to learn how to use, all the different knobs and switches on it. So maybe he pays you $150 to come over to his house, help him set it up, get all his favorite tones. I started doing guitar repairs. So my 40 students now were 40 opportunities to do guitar repairs. I started doing session work. I started doing gigs with variety bands and dance bands. I started taking a look at church gigs and working in church. When I was growing up, I played in the church band with my dad, but it wasn't a paid situation. And it was, you went to church, you were serving there, so it wasn't actually a job. But right around the early 2000s, there started to be these church worship opportunities where you would actually serve and be on payroll at a church. And so that was another thing as well. So you can start to see this thing take shape. You have lessons during the day. I started finding people who maybe had time in the morning. This usually involved more elderly people, right? Or maybe it was a businessman who he made his own schedules, so he got to say, hey, I'm going to take a break at 10 a.m. and go have a lesson with Korey. There's other things that could happen in the morning as well. You can go to nursing homes and you can provide entertainment and music for them. That's another paying opportunity. So you start creating this, what I said, a sustainable career in music. And this would mean maybe you wake up in the morning at 5 a.m., you get 2 or 3 hours of practice in, you get ready for the day, you go to your nursing home, you play there, maybe you go to a middle school and you do one of their programs there for music, maybe you have your first couple of lessons in the morning, go over to somebody's house, maybe it's a homeschool situation where you teach their children, and then maybe their mom a piano lesson, and then you go to your studio teaching job at 1 in the afternoon, you teach your studio students until 6, 7 at night, and then you run off to your gig after that. So you can start seeing how this can start putting together that sustainable career. You have income sources coming from everywhere, and that is kind of a cool thing. Of course, most of this income is going to be your contractor income, so you have to take a lot of notes, you have to keep all your receipts, and you have to be really good at bookkeeping, basically. So as long as you have that stuff going, you're going to be good, all right? Now, notice that I have not mentioned at all anything about writing my own music or becoming famous, all right? So in my experience, having worked with just a ton of different artists over the course of my 20-plus years in the music industry, the vast majority of people who make a living from this, they're not famous. You have no idea who they are. A very small piece of the pie is going to be people that are household names or who are on tour. The most, successful studio musicians and professional musicians I've seen are people that are doing everyday things, right? They're doing theater work. They're doing sessions. They're, co-writing songs with people, doing commercials. They're teaching, all these types of things. So keep that in mind because I remember being a teenager and you're a teenager and you're like, hey, I want to be a professional guitar player. That means I have to be famous. That's not true at all. So that's something that will be important to keep in mind as we have this discussion. So I started taking gigs that started making more and more money, and that meant the country scene. So for those of you who are not familiar playing country music is probably the best place for a guitar player to make money, have a consistent gig, and get to use lots of fun gear, get really into tone and that type of thing. Because if you think about the country scene, they have a lot of roots music-based guitar tones. So you get to use all your nice tube amplifiers, you get to use all the finest effects, all the finest microphones, and that stuff is a big part of that style. There's also guitar solos in almost every single song, and the guitar is a featured element of every single band. So unlike maybe a pop gig, where you're kind of in the background, chunking out chords and that type of thing, the country genre is a really awesome place to do that. So country gigs, especially in Texas here where I live, are some of the best paying gigs you can get. So I started getting into that when I lived in Minnesota, and then right around 2013, I moved down to Texas here. I got a gig at Cowboys Dance Hall working there, and also got a teaching job at the Guitar Sanctuary. So from, I would say, the mid-2000s until now, I have played over 4,000 live performances. Yes, you heard me right, over 4,000 live performances. And we're talking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in a bar or a honky-tonk playing those types of gigs, and then Sunday mornings in church. So with 5 opportunities a week to play a paying gig, your 40 to 60 students a week, your consulting, your lessons, your, co-songwriting and commercials and all this other type of things, this is how you start building that sustainable career. So there are a lot of different things that are going to come up, and you just have to be ready for them. A common one would be, being familiar with other styles of music. You may say that you don't like jazz, for example, but what are you going to do when you're in a top 40 variety band that gets a wedding gig and you have to play dinner jazz, right? I remember that. It was like, oh, all of a sudden, the hardest part of the night musically is this hour of real book jazz music before the actual set. That can be a eye-opening experience for people that are not prepared for that. So a couple of things to kind of keep in mind with all of this. You're going to feel like you're not really being creative a lot of the time. And so there are different types of musicians, right? There are musicians that are technicians. I would kind of put myself in that category. Technicians are people that are kind of chameleons. We do a lot of different types of things. We're mostly concerned and in love with our instrument. Then there are people that are just in love with music in general. These are your friends that they play oboe, they play trumpet, they play drums, they play bass, they play guitar, they sing, they play piano, they do producing, they do, all these different types of things, but they only do these things in a small, limited capacity. They love music so much they kind of have this, OCD about everything. They're just kind of like, I have to do this, then that, and this, then that, and everything has to be perfect, but I can't do everything perfectly because I'm kind of, spread too thin. Those people tend to be a little frustrated, I've noticed. So, but the technicians are one. There's the people that try to be as versatile as possible. There's the people that are going to be specialists. So these are those people that kind of stay in their own lane and they don't do anything else. So this could be your country singer. This could be your worship guitar player. This could be your person that makes beats, or, maybe somebody is just a vocal teacher, something like that. So we have people who are just specialists. Then we have other people who are so devoted to songwriting that everything is in service to that one skill. So it could be someone that is just trying to make a name for themselves as an indie songwriter. There's that as well. But notice that all these other, if you're not versatile and you're just going to have this narrow lane of being a specialist, like let's just say you wanted to be an indie songwriter, then a lot of these other income streams are not going to be available to you. So you have to be really careful there. Okay. Although, we've all noticed with social media and YouTube and that type of thing, there are a lot more opportunities to get heard. But those aren't actually going to be paying things for a while. So, gigs is still an important thing. Other things to kind of watch out for are going to be just the toll on your body, right? So becoming a professional musician, late hours, for a long time, I would basically, gig Wednesday through Saturday night. I would get home Saturday night like 4 or 5 a.m., then you get an hour of sleep, and then you have to be to your rehearsal for your church gig by like 6:45 a.m., and that takes a toll on you, and especially if you have a family and young children, now you have to balance all these different relationships, and it becomes a challenge. So, but anyway, so far we've kind of talked about, my history, getting all the way up to my time here in Texas, and I just want to say that, becoming a professional musician, it doesn't have to be about being famous. There's a lot of different things that you can do to create that sustainable career, but you are going to have to practice like you want it. So this will be my final thought for today. So if you do want to be a professional musician or guitar player, become versatile. Okay? Practice different styles of music. Learn how to improvise. Learn how to read music. Learn your music theory. Learn your ear training skills. Learn how to arrange. Learn how to deal with different, types of personalities. Learn your instruments, your effects. Learn your processors. Learn how to do microphones. Learn how to do all these different types of things. That way you can be, you have all these different ways to make money, okay? And it's not going to be easy, but it is something that you actually can do. And I can tell you from experience, I would rather have a hard day in the office playing my guitar than on that phone trying to sell crap with, the Deluxe Corporation or whatever it might be. So hopefully this was helpful to a lot of you, and there will be more talks about this in the future, I'm sure. So feel free to leave any questions in the comments below, and we will talk to you next time. All right, bye-bye.